How's it going, USC football family? How are we doing today? Welcome to yet another episode of Coliseum Chronicles. Casey Casliner joined alongside Terrence Holton, two of your premier sources for USC football news, updates, everything. Terrence, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty great, Casey. It's finals week here on campus, but not too bad a schedule, and excited to always talk some ball with you.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I'd say there's a lot more we could talk about today than maybe previously, just because USC recruiting, I believe they've had a recruit every day for the past week, I think, at least one. And so, they're averaging one at least. So it's been a big week for USC recruiting wise, just bolstering their number one spot in the 2026 class rankings for freshman recruits, as well as bringing in a high profile cornerback transfer we'll talk about in a moment from UCF. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the positional, just sort of depth chart predictions, I guess you could say. Offensive line looking a little different next year with Jonah Monheim and Emmanuel Pregnon leaving. And then you have, of course, a brand new running back room, almost entirely brand new running back room with the exception of Brian Jackson. And so a lot to talk about today. But first, let's talk about some of this recruiting lately. I didn't say his name, but Chasen Johnson, the cornerback coming in. But before we get to him, let's talk about the recruiting on the freshman side out of high school. There's been some recent names. Are there any that stand out to you? I know there's a couple we talked about before we went live here, but who stands out to you in this class?
Yeah, I mean, talking 2026, we should specify. Landing Kini Pepe from IMG, obviously he's LA native, if I'm not mistaken. That's just a massive add because USC hasn't had that premier offensive line recruit in quite some time. Been reading up on this guy. He's explosive. He's not fantastic blocking downfield all that much, but he's big, he's fast, he's quick, all sorts of that stuff. It's one of those, I'm not going to say program changing recruits, but it's one of the best ways to build it's building up that offensive line. It's a fundamental part of your offense. When you land a recruit as premier as Pepe, as really that good, it's massive. There's no really other way to put it, in my opinion. And like I said, I want to say it's the highest rated offensive lineman since Austin Jackson. I could be completely mistaken on that. Definitely think it's the best. I could be mistaken, but it's huge. It's a massive ad. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen USC with some pretty good offensive linemen over the years. Andrew Voorhees, one of them. And yeah, to your point on his size, I mean, he's 6'7", 320 pounds, and he's still growing. Like
currently a junior in high school. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a chance he easily puts on a lot more size, a lot more weight. Like you said, you alluded to it. According to 24/7 Sports, he is the number 6 offensive tackle in his class. And we've known that USC these past couple of years has really struggled with just a consistent offensive line across the board. Like last year, you saw Emmanuel Pregnon, was amazing. And I'm sure a lot of you guys listening probably very heavily dislike the guy because he went to Oregon, and that's very valid to be a critique.
I was about to say that's yeah.
No.
2 weeks after he said he was staying too.
Yeah, and we know that Oregon gave him a lot of money. So yeah, to get a tackle, the interior O-line got some help this year with some recruits. Transfer recruits, Jay-Andre Reed from Syracuse, and who's very likely going to be the starting center with Jonah Monheim going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then DJ Wingfield from Big Ten rival Purdue, who will probably play at the left guard position. And of course, we know that, Manuel Pregnon played guard. And of course, Mason Murphy's gone as well. I'm sure a lot of USC fans are happy about that as well, because he, let's just say he had more missed assignments than most high schoolers with a 0.2 GPA have. So yeah,
a little light slander in there, just a little.
Well, I mean, it's true.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. Don't get me wrong about that. You're not incorrect.
I mean, then you also have we know that last year some of the younger O linemen struggled. Elijah Page, didn't have the start he wanted to. I thought he picked things up pretty well down the stretch.
100%. He got so much better over time. Just sorry to cut you off. He definitely started off a little shaky. I mean, coming into the season, you kept seeing social media videos of I don't know if you remember this, of Elijah Page and just how much bigger he was. And yes, he got bigger, but he wasn't necessarily the best blocker. And he did over time get a lot better. I'm excited about him this year.
Yeah, the issue with him too is he has the problem with cramping. And I know that was a huge issue for him last year, and it like even would sideline him in some games. Like he would come in and start cramping, and then they would take him out. So I think it's a big year for number 72 on the left tackle. I mean, left tackle is just such an important position, right?
Yeah.
And I think with Maeva being the mobile QB that he is, I think that maybe favors Page a bit more because we know that Miller Moss was just sitting in the pocket on that blind side. And then you have Alani Noah at right guard. Again, another guy who started out a little slower, but showed a lot of good progress. But Tobias Raymond was really that breakout player on the right side of the offensive line. Thoughts on him? I mean, of course, he started the year kind of as an unknown and came in and really, I thought, shined well.
Yeah, I mean, similarly to Elijah Page, as the season progressed along, we saw a lot of these younger guys begin to step up, really turn into what we thought they would be as prospects, as what we were hearing from training camp. I think the offensive line is going to be better than last year. And I know I'm kind of contradicting myself because I wasn't necessarily sure of that a couple of weeks ago whenever we talked about them, with Pregnon leaving. But I do think they're going to be better. I think Winfield and Reed are massive additions, a lot bigger than some people are really, saying. Obviously, we're talking a lot about like the defensive line. You got Jarrett, you got Silver, those guys. Offensive line beefed up too, and I think they will be better.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at a guy like John-Ray Reed, who was blocking for Kyle McCord last year, who really is not that mobile of a quarterback. And then yeah, exactly. And then you come to USC where you have Jaden Maeva as your starting QB, who is a lot more mobile. So it's only going to make it easier for him. And I mean, Kyle McCord had one of the best seasons by a quarterback last year, statistically speaking. So, and he's the center. I mean, I think that's a huge addition. Wingfield, of course, was on a worse team, but he's an older guy. He's a redshirt senior, and so is Reed. They're both redshirt seniors, so they both have experience. It's not like the O-line didn't have experience last year, but I just felt like giving Monheim that sort of responsibility because he changed positions, right?
Yeah, right.
He was, I believe, on the interior before.
He was a guard, and then he moved to center.
Yeah, and I mean, we know how good I thought Justin Dedich was.
He's great.
And so, I mean, he's in the NFL because of it. And so when you go from that to Monheim with a less mobile QB, it's not like Monheim's bad by any means. Great offensive lineman. He's in the NFL for a reason, but he just couldn't hold it down himself, and I don't really blame him. But let's get back to recruiting because we basically just went through all the O-linemen. Yeah, so, of course, Pepe is huge, literally and physically, for this team. We didn't talk about Alex Payne either because he's going to be a true freshman this year. Was one of those Southern recruits that Lincoln Riley likes getting out of Georgia. He's going to be a guy you could maybe see getting some time on the tackle position, maybe in some games that USC's up by a lot. Maybe Alex Payne will come in. But, yeah, looking at some more of these recruits, I mean, another big one. Of course, they got a couple receivers this week. But sticking with we'll go to the defense, I guess. Elbert Hill, cornerback from Akron, Ohio, originally. 5'10", 175 pounds, not the biggest guy, but I mean, he's supposed to be just a very decorated cornerback. Again, he's been a guy that's been someone you really have to watch in the 7-on-7s. He's been very good. He also has played track or run track and field. So he's fast. He has played receiver, as we've seen a lot of these young guys, they play receiver and cornerback. And of course he's going to want to grow a bit and get stronger, but he's supposed to be a really good ball tracker and a guy that I think is going to be a huge addition for this defense in 2026.
Yeah, I think it's massive. I mean, he plays on both the inside and outside. I think that's really big nowadays. You need guys who can play in the slot. Not everyone can. Not everyone can keep up with those speedy, smaller slot receivers. You need a guy like Hill who's going to lock that down. There's one clip I saw after he committed to USC, this was a couple days ago, of a 7-on-7 game at the Overtime Elite. Obviously, that's the basketball league. Overtime Elite, one 7-on-7 tournament, whatever. He had an incredible pick in the end zone, took it back for 6. It's hard to visualize, but he basically stepped in front of the receiver, took it all the way back at the corner of the end zone, cut off the guy. Great player, can make great plays on the ball. As you mentioned, he's quick. It's a great addition. He's really highly ranked on ESPN. We both talked about it. We prefer 24/7 and On3, which he's still top 100 in the consensus rankings. But I think just seeing how high he does go in some rankings compared to the others shows the talent level because some guys are evaluating him as one of the best players in this class.
Yeah, and it's important to note he does have some official visits lined up with some of those SEC schools. And LSU and Alabama are two of them that he has those June visits with. Or LSU's in late May, but yeah, USC is just definitely going to want to influence him enough to lock it down. He's also going to visit Oregon, Ohio State. So
I do.
definitely,
Sorry to interrupt you. I do want to mention on this the topic of recruits taking other visits. You see, Pepe did shut down his recruitment, if I'm
yeah.
not mistaken, to USC. That's really big to me. Obviously, that's just a word. You can just say that. But if he's not taking any more visits, if he is truly locked into USC to their class of 2026, massive.
Yeah, and I want to just acknowledge too, like I think, like for a lot of these guys, like I mean, USC last year, having a Polynesian starting quarterback for the first time, like it's huge for some of these guys. Like, there's a lot of Polynesian football players, and they, like USC has always been a school that represents them well. You have Sean Nua, coach on the defensive side, and I think like it shows in the recruiting that like it feels a lot more than just football. Sometimes it's like these guys can find sort of a family, with people that represent them, and so I think that's also big as we're seeing a lot of these of Polynesian descent, sometimes Hawaiian recruits come to USC. And I think that's huge. I mean, I think Jane Mayava being QB, also helps. You just have a guy who is of that background and kind of made history last year. You see that at UCLA too now with Nico, but I mean, it's interesting just to see that. Let's talk about the receivers though. Luke Weaver, coming over from Notre Dame High School. That's kind of ironic and funny.
It's probably confused a couple of people on like his recruitment edit because it says Notre Dame on the jersey and then USC, but people are wrong.
Yeah, and the uniforms are like the exact same as
the exact same, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, another good receiver for USC. He's very fast when he'll come in, hopefully in 2026. And is kind of a guy like Jacoby Lane who can go up and grab those balls, those 50-50 balls with his good hands. He's also 6'3", and he's still growing. He's 194 pounds. And again, he's a guy who's we've talked about before, like a Jacoby Lane Jr. He definitely embodies the Jacoby Lane traits that we can kind of relate to.
Yeah, I will say that like the physically, I agree with that. At the same time, that 10, 6, 8, 100-meter dash that's oof. I mean, we talked about last week with the receivers. There's a lot of these guys are really fast and did a lot of track in high school, which makes sense. He's one of the fastest guys in Southern California, if I'm not mistaken, timing wise, that is. It's really those guys who, Riley, you want to get them in space, let them go. It's another massive addition, just keeps building on this class.
Yeah, he's one of the fastest receivers. I don't have data to suggest he's one of the fastest in the country, but he's certainly up there in California, and in the region. So a huge addition. I mean, we know that we've seen, Zachariah Branch and Mekhi Lemon's really fast. Like, so if you have those traits that, you can be sort of that gadget guy, but also go downfield, kind of like Mekhi Lemon, because I felt like that's what sort of hindered Zachariah Branch's game. He had the similarities of Mekhi Lemon in the backfield, but when he was tasked with, catching a 40-yard ball, that's where it plagued him. Whereas, a guy like Mekhi Lemon can kind of do it all, sort of that 5-tool receiver. And I think we definitely see that with Luke Weaver. And then another receiver USC went out and grabbed, at least the commitment of, was Roderick Tizeno, who, again, is another really highly touted recruit. Booby Feaster is still on the board. So, you could go out and get another
big visit coming up June 8th, I want to say. I saw it earlier today, but he's visiting LSU, Ohio State, Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. It's like and then USC is also top 4. Forgetting the other recruits, but that's a big one. He's a top 5 receiver in this class.
Yeah. I mean, again, like it's one of those things where we saw last year, you had your highly ranked or formerly highly ranked recruits, like Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, but you had a lot of filler receivers as well. Like Jay Fair, like Kyron Hudson, a lot of guys who like maybe were kind of at the end of their line. And so to have guys like this, you're going to bring a lot of youth into the program. Of course, you'll still have like veterans like Prince Strawn and whatnot this year, but just preparing for the future and kind of growing guys like Xavier Jordan. We talked about this last week. Go check out our wide receiver video if you haven't already. It was last week's. And I mean, the receiver pipeline is looking good, and there's still a lot of guys on the board. Of course, it was, I think, for USC fans, really heartbreaking when you saw Jerome Miles go to Texas A&M, and now you combat with a really good receiver class in 2026.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm never going to really worry about USC and wide receivers. It's just a very classic. They're going to be there. People are going to want to play wide receiver at USC. Obviously, probably LSU most would consider to be wide receiver U at USC, or excuse me, in the NFL. I mean, USC has some fantastic receivers in the NFL and has a lot of guys right now. I mean, just take Drake London, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman Jr., Nelson Aguilar, even. There's plenty of guys who I think you can very easily label USC as wide receiver U if it weren't for obviously the top LSU guys are phenomenal. But I'm never really going to worry about USC and wide receivers.
I'm not either. And I even think running backs too, because we've seen like them go out and get some really solid transfer running backs. And I guess that's a good transition to talking about the running backs. I mean, to my point there, saw Marshawn Lloyd 2 years ago come over from South Carolina. He was incredible for USC. He's getting playing time with the Packers now. Then last year, I mean, the recruiting, yeah. I mean, he's getting snaps.
Yeah, he will.
If he's behind Josh Jacobs, it's tough to gets one of the running back, one of the best running backs in the NFL. And then of course last year Woody Marks, who was a dual threat running back, could catch the ball, could run, had a great speed and power. I mean, one of the most dynamic running backs I've seen at USC.
Phenomenal season,
yeah, incredible year. Of course, it was really kind of heartbreaking to see Quentin Joyner go. However, USC went ahead and brought in some good prospects, one of which was the best JUCO player in all of junior college, not just running backs, but he won basically the Heisman for the equivalent in the JUCO level, and that's Waymon Jordan. And I think he's a very exciting prospect. Of course, Eli Sanders coming over from New Mexico State, I believe, and then New Mexico, and then you retain Brian Jackson. And then you still have Riley Wormley, who is a true freshman. I doubt he's going to get much time this year. But those three, and we saw Brian Jackson in that Texas A&M game really shine. I mean, he didn't have like the flashiest numbers in that game, but again, in a game that really mattered.
It was like 16 for 66 and a touchdown is very solid.
Yeah, and I mean, he's more of a power back too. So it's you saw him it was really stuff off the stat sheet that impressed me. I mean, you saw him pushing through holes. There was blown blocks that he would still find a way through. And I think that was really exciting. But let's talk about Waymon Jordan, because I think he's the guy who everybody has their eyes on right now. Not the biggest guy, but he's 5'9", 209. So he's got a big, bulky frame. Again, he was at the JUCO ranks, had some visits with UCF previously, but he's coming over to USC. And I mean, what are your thoughts on the pickup? Of course, he was a 3-star prospect originally, but it's JUCO translating to college. What are your sort of thoughts on him as a prospect?
Yeah, I mean, this was brought up a lot in our very first show a couple of weeks ago, just this guy's talent, because we were thinking like a committee. We both agree. I'm cut me off if I'm speaking for you. We both agree that if anyone's going to come out as the lead back, it's going to be Waymon Jordan. I mean, the talent is very clearly there. He averaged 134 rushing yards per game. He had 20 touchdowns in 12 games, was it? He's clearly very talented, and we just got to see that translate to the next level. I'm not going to ask him to come out here and rush for 1,600 yards in his first year in D1. That being said, I think he totally could be an explosive enough player to make it to that. Am I crazy to say 1,000 yards?
I don't think you're crazy. No. I mean, I think it depends on, again, does Lincoln Riley want to go with the approach of throwing the ball 50 times per game, or is he going to rely on some of his running backs? Because you don't have a Woody Marks, right? Like, again, we don't know what Waymon's going to be like. We knew how good Woody Marks was. That's the only difference. And also, call me crazy as well, but Waymon Jordan's going to be a junior this year, I believe, and this will be his first year at college. Like, I don't think it's obviously transfer portal permitting, but I don't think it's crazy to say that he could have 2 years at USC. And I don't think that would be the worst thing. I mean, I think especially if he's good, he is a guy who could go to the NFL if he shines. But again, I mean, I think maybe some scouts would question him only going 1 year at the D1 college level just because he is a JUCO prospect. But he's the number 7 according to ESPN JUCO prospect, and then the number 1 running back. Of course, I don't think that's up for any contention. And yeah, he was the D1 the National Junior College Association Football Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, just a ton of accolades on his part. And I think him in a tandem with Eli Sanders could really provide that 1-2 punch. I feel like we didn't see that much with Quentin Joyner last year, just because Quentin Joyner, some games just wouldn't get a lot of snaps. I felt like, when he did, I mean, that Penn State game was incredible. That was his best game of his career. And, we just didn't see it. He was kind of on and off.
Look, Quentin Joyner was incredibly explosive, and it's really frustrating that he didn't see the field as much as he did with USC. I mean, one of my biggest gripes with Lincoln Riley is that I didn't think he ran the ball enough. I mean, Woody Marks was fantastic. Quentin Joyner, if Woody's not having a great game, he's a guy who can rip off a 75-yard run like it was that reverse pass versus Penn State, or is it Notre Dame? Which one am I thinking about?
I think you're thinking Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame. I'm 90% sure it's Notre Dame, where he rips off a long run. Look, I was frustrated we didn't see that. I think a committee to start for these two, for Eli Sanders and Wayman Jordan and Brian Jackson too, is smart. That being said, I don't know if you've seen a bunch of this. There's not really a receiving back in this backfield. Have you really seen it? Because obviously Woody, longest streak in, it wasn't NCAA history of running back with most receptions, was it?
I mean, he had like 50 games in a row with one.
Yeah,
reception.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Marshawn Lloyd was a decent receiving back too, and then obviously year before that, how am I blanking on his name? Transfer from Oregon. Whatever. Who am I forgetting? Ty. Oh, this is gonna frustrate me all night. Whatever. Anyways, there's no true receiving back on this team. I don't know if you've seen their stats. Eli Sanders had 134. Wayman Jordan had like 30 or 40 last year. There's none of these guys really catch it out of the backfield much, which kind of concerns me because Woody Marks was always that safety valve for Miller Moss, for Jade Mayava. Who is going to step up? Obviously, we talked a little bit about Lake McCree last week being that safety valve.
Hear me out.
You need one of those running backs too as well.
Hear me out, because I agree. I mean, I just looked at Eli Sanders' stats. You're right. I mean, he only had 15 receptions last year, which was a career high. He also rushed for 1,000 yards. Incredible season for Eli Sanders. I mean, 9 touchdowns, 1,000 yards, averaging over 7 yards a carry is incredible. Hear me out, though. I think Xavier Jordan could be a really good safety valve. I think he's a guy who, he's young, he's unpredictable, he's not very big, but I think he's a guy who, we know Lincoln Riley likes to roll those pre-snap movements and kind of trick the opposition sometimes. If all else fails, I'm not saying have it your first choice, but maybe, line up him on the edge, have him do a screen or make, have him come out of the backfield. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, kind of like a Deebo Samuel type.
I was 49ers fan. I was thinking, are you going to play him out of the backfield? Because I'm not opposed to that. Don't get me wrong. I'm opposed. I will try anything. Yeah, whatever. I love those quick plays. You can see that. I wouldn't be, like I said, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think having a receiving back, because I was thinking about Brian Jackson too. I mean, he's a big guy. I don't see him making a lot of movement off the edge, in a situation like that. Maybe he can prove us wrong. I don't know too much about Riley Wormley. And also, I think him as a true freshman, I don't see him getting that much time. No. But I don't know. I think it's not a necessity per se, because you have to remember that, last year, I feel like Miller Moss needed that safety valve. Yeah. Because he couldn't run very well. But now with Mayava having a full season of him, again, it would be nice to have that. But with him having the ability to dance outside the pocket, I wouldn't mind just having that instead. Again, though, you'd like to have a receiving back just to be a little bit more unpredictable.
Yeah. Just to be to be unpredictable, to have someone who you can rely on if everything goes to hell. That's what a receiving back should be. That's what the good ones are. They are creative. They're crafty out of the backfield once they get it in either a pass or a run, but they're also there to make a play if no one is open downfield. That's what all the good ones, McCaffrey. That's what, why can't they? Alvin Kamara. That's what all those guys are good at.
Josh Jacobs. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. By the way, for all you in the chat, if you want to leave any of your thoughts, and again, make sure to like and subscribe if you like the content. And we'd love to hear from you guys as well. We got one little critique of Zachariah Branch here. So
you get that a lot though, and it's a very fair critique. Travis Dye, Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was going to bug me all night. Thank you very much. Yeah, I may as well, because we didn't really talk about this when it came up. We've talked about it before. Zachariah Branch, obviously the receiver breakdown last week. He did have no hands. That plagued him. He should have had a lot more than one touchdown, probably at least 4 to 5. I'm remembering 2 particularly where it was super easy drops that were in the end zone. But I think it's very possible he goes off at Georgia because they don't really also have a true wide receiver 1. Whereas USC, obviously, Lemon, Lane, they are true wide receivers.
Yeah.
Ooh, also, sorry, tangent. Did you see that in the ESPN way too early mock draft? I want to say Jacoby Lane was mocked as high. It was like 12 to like the Cowboys.
I feel like I did see that. I also saw Jaden Mayava potential first round pick, which
not opposed. Not going to say no. Not saying no. I think that's really all just going off of like their potential of like what they could be like. And I agree. I think both those potentials are sky high.
Also, Kamari Ramsey, I think, has been mocked in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, as he should be. He is the safest. If I had to guess who is going to be the safest day 1, day 2 pick of this year's NFL or this year's USC team, the NFL draft, it would be Kamari Ramsey. Like, can you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, don't we love when like Bruins become Trojans and become better? Like, you know, like Kobe Johnson basketball, he goes to UCLA, gets worse. But when Bruins become Trojans, I mean, Danton Lynn.
Look at Kyle Ford. Went to UCLA, bad, came back, solid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Raiders minicamp. You got invited to the Raiders minicamp.
Yeah, had the last touchdown of the season, right? I
believe. Yeah.
So
that moment that meant a ton for him.
Yeah, it just means more at USC. It's like there's 2 sides of LA.
What are we, the SEC now? It just means more?
In California, USC is it just means more. Like Cal, Stanford, UCLA, they don't know what they're doing. But back on track. I mean, I don't think it's ever too early to start talking about the draft. I think it was interesting though seeing Miller Moss last year mocked at 3rd overall to the Giants.
Wait, where did you see that?
I saw some sources.
With respect to Miller Moss.
I think it was Sports Illustrated after week 1 had Miller Moss, and don't quote me, it was some outlet. I don't know if it was Sports Illustrated. And if anyone in the comments wants to chime in here.
It was probably Sports Illustrated when they were still using like those AI writers.
Yeah, they had Miller Moss mocked at 3rd overall to the New York Giants. He could pop off this year and make himself a first round pick. He could
Tyler Shuck. I mean, that was crazy.
Yeah. We're not going to say the full name again. the other school in LA, the
other LA school.
Pasadena, actually, not even LA. In terms of football.
I was about to say that.
The stadium that USC has been much more successful in historically, like way more, like what is it, 28 Rose Bowl wins, something like that. Sorry, you go.
I was just going to go back to recruiting a little bit because obviously USC is the number 1 class right now. They have 14 more. 12 more commits than the next closest. I think it's 27 to 15 is the next closest. I want to ask you, do you think that USC finishes with a top 5 class?
I think so. I think it's so hard because there's so many what ifs. Like we don't know who's going to decommit, but also like when you have that many bodies coming in, like I know, like, you know, obviously you want quality over quantity, but when you have, you know, even if you have 20 coming in, that's probably still the most.
Someone is going in that list. Yeah.
I mean, again, like we look at who else is really high up in that list. Obviously, I don't even want to say their name, but the team in Indiana, the team in South Bend, LSU's up there, Clemson's up there, Ohio State's up there, Oregon. I didn't even want to say Oregon. They're up there. LSU. I mean, like the SEC schools are going to be tough to edge out just because they're SEC schools. But that's why bringing in Chad Bowden is huge, because I think he's going to be the reason. I think without Chad Bowden, USC has they still have a top maybe 10 class, maybe top 5, maybe.
I don't know. It's hard to argue just because of how many people he's brought in since he was hired.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
You're right. I mean, he's been huge, and you know, he's been on podcasts and stuff, and he's very public about, you know,
our ticker says, Casey, as our little ticker down here, Chad Bowden working miracles.
He is. I mean, again, you poach somebody from a rival, they come and do better things. And he took a Notre Dame team.
Yeah, we were just talking about UCLA. You come
Yeah.
to the good part of LA, then you better things happen.
I mean, look, he took a Notre Dame team that, for all I'm concerned, I was pretty, and again, I mean, it's Notre Dame, but I was pretty against Notre Dame. Like what I'm trying to say is I did not expect them to make it far. Their schedule was easy. You know, they won those playoff games, and when it comes down to those close games in the playoffs, it comes down to who is the recruiting and the coaching edge, right? And the culture edge. And Chad Bowden had built a really good culture in a short period of time and didn't have to rely on having a top QB. I think Riley Leonard's a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he's no Heisman, or not even close. So I think Chad Bowden coming in here is going to build back that culture that we're seeing. I mean, it's kind of a cliche at this point, but the best in California want to play for SC. Yeah. And that was ruined by the fact that, Lincoln Riley comes in. He doesn't have a connection to LA yet. He still, is trying to establish that. He's from, the SEC, or I guess at the time it was the Big 12, but
SEC country. So
yeah, he's from the southern part of the US. And, a guy like Bowden maybe doesn't necessarily have, the lineage just because he just came over from Notre Dame, but he knows what it takes to get these modern day kids, right? So these Bosco kids, like it's a culture thing. So I think that was a little bit of a tangent, but I think USC certainly can have a top class. Of course, things are going to change. Guys are going to leave, but guys are also going to come in. So yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Look, I just think when USC wins the recruiting trail in California, they win games, they win national titles, they win Rose Bowls, all of that stuff. You need to win California. I just remember, so my freshman year, Jeff Fellenser, one of our professors here at USC, awesome former LA Times sports writer, huge recruiting guy. Pete Carroll was one of our guests in the class, and he told us this story. It wasn't really a story. It was more just whenever he would go to a high school, if you go to a high school in California, if you go to high school in Southern California, it used to be if Pete Carroll or if USC, if Ed Orgeron, whoever it was, offered you, you committed on the spot. No, just that's how it was in the early 2000s. Obviously, USC was winning national titles, all sorts of that stuff. You want to play for USC. These guys want to play for USC in Southern California. Chad Bowden has reestablished that.
100%. Like, I mean, you look at 20 years ago, obviously it's a much different landscape. Like that's even like, that sounds silly to say because it's so obvious. Like, there's no NIL. There's, it's a lot more passion based than money because that's just how it was. It was like most of the guys aren't going to the NFL. They're going to play college football because they love the sport. They love the game. And it felt like USC had the edge in that category because of the historical promises that USC would give to players. Like, obviously they have 8 Heisman. At the time it was 7 after Reggie Bush, but you have the most, up there for the Heismans. You have the most Rose Bowls out of anybody. Kids love, football players love, young football players want to play important games at the Rose Bowl every year. Look, playing in the Cotton Bowl is cool, but the Rose Bowl, the history behind it, when you come to SC, there's a certain expectation that you are going to be playing in that game, especially 20 years ago. And I know it's a bit different now, and USC has not been a national title contender in quite some time. But at the same time, that history sort of finds a way to repeat itself. Because think about it, USC in the early 90s was not good at all. No, whereas we know in the 70s and in some parts of the 80s, they were very good. And history tends to repeat itself in college football. And so, again, I mean, you come to USC, it might be a 2-3 year process. And I know that sounds like an eternity for college football players when they only play 4 years.
Especially nowadays.
But again, when you put on that SC jersey, especially in the Chad Bowden era, which of course is brand new, but as we're sort of expecting, it means a lot more is what I'm trying to say. It's maybe not the SEC, but the history is, I'd argue, way more rich than most of the SEC schools.
Oh yeah. I mean, apart from Alabama, it's really not a lot of teams who have better history than USC. It really isn't.
Texas is up there. Like,
Texas up there. Obviously, Georgia's recent.
yeah,
Ohio State, Oklahoma, Michigan, Notre Dame. Those are
yeah.
like the only teams I'd put alongside USC. Other than that, USC has better history than all those, than everyone else in FBS, FCS, all those.
And
But
we haven't even talked about the new facilities opening up. Like,
yeah, and we see them every single day on campus.
I mean, how like freaking cool is it to play in the Coliseum every week, a stadium that is legendary in its own right, but then also be able to, have the Bloom facility popping up hopefully by next season. I think it's expected
2026, right?
Yeah.
So it'll actually be when a lot of these recruits get on campus. Well, as far as it's promised so far.
I mean, the NIL too, like it's just it's in the academics, it's hard to not, even like for us, like I know we try to be as, impartial or partial, sorry, as one of the, it's impartial, unbiased. We try to be as unbiased. We are students here. We try to be as unbiased as we can be. But at the same time, it's even if you're a UCLA fan or Notre Dame fan, I'm sure it's really hard for you to not admire SC just because of what they offer. Because I mean, we're seeing it right now. It's the best general manager in the country. You have one of the best coaches in terms of producing talent in the country. We'll see how he can turn that into winning this year and next year and beyond. He's on a huge contract, Lincoln Riley. But and then you're in the biggest NIL, one of the biggest NIL markets in the country. Like, there's just so many factors that are going into this, and it's building a new culture that I'll admit, you can chime in on this. Did you expect any of this to happen? Like when we saw that Caleb Williams is declaring for the NFL draft, I thought, wow, all hope is lost for this program. I was seriously in that position.
Well, I didn't think that. I knew he was declaring for the NFL draft.
Well, no, but I'm saying knowing that you didn't have a Heisman QB anymore. I'm just saying as an big picture, like not that was one event, but I'm saying knowing that you had missed out on a huge season in 2023. That steered me away from having hope. And then you bring in just the personnel and the the money. It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the time to take it. USC has not properly, in my opinion, taken advantage of the NIL era. And this is the time to do it because we are truly at a place where it's lawless and there's no regulations. There's going to be relatively soon. Obviously, the House ruling was pushed back. What happened with it? This is the time to take advantage of NIL regulations where there are none, is what I should say. And put all your money towards football. Football is the reason that these other sports programs exist. I'm not saying take away money from other smaller programs. I'm saying invest more into football. We obviously are going to have a new president this upcoming term, which we don't know who that is yet. Carol Foltz is stepping down. She was a big supporter of football. She understood the importance of football within a school's atmosphere. So it will be interesting to see how the new president affects, I guess, the football program. Is that crazy to say?
I mean, yeah. I mean, not really. I mean, look, like USC is in a huge deficit financially. I think it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And, some of that is because of, it's a myriad of things, right? But football is the reason why USC is a national brand. Like, it's an amazing school. It's an incredible academic school. But
our unbiased opinion, of course.
Yeah. But like Jeff Fellenzer himself said this quote that, and I actually don't know if it's his original quote, but the respected LA Times columnist said that, and it's very true, that football is the front porch of a university. Like, would you know about Alabama if they didn't have a football team? Absolutely not. It's just not. It's a university. It's an SEC school, but it's not.
Get yourself there on good school.
Well, that can be.
All due respect to our colleagues, sure. Crimson Tide.
Sure, but the point I'm trying to make is USC is an academic force, but the reason why it's on the map is because of its football team. And I mean, its baseball team is the most winningest, and its women's basketball team has a lot of history, and the men's basketball team has produced some good NBA players. But the football team is one of the best in terms of producing NFL talent, and that their stats to back that up, probably the best. And I want to just highlight this because I think that just goes to what I'm talking about. And we'll get to some of those prior comments in a moment, guys, but keep firing away because I think this is a really good conversation here. Again, the football team is the front porch of your university, and they have to be, as Russ is saying here, all in on football.
Yeah. I know. I 100% agree. It's the cornerstone of a university at this point. It's what it has to be at this point. It's the moneymaker. It funds all other athletic programs. And where is USC without its athletics? So it'll be interesting to see who they bring in. I think it'll probably just be like the vice president or someone like that who's already in the administration. But regardless, they need to care about football.
Also, the athletic director, Jen Cohen, is going to have to put in a little bit extra work.
Right.
Just to make sure. I think she's done a pretty good job so far. I mean, it's a really hard job managing all those sports. And I'll be honest, I don't really know what her day-to-day kind of looks like. I mean,
can't say either. No, I can't say I'm following Jen Cohen that much.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a tough job, and I think she did a good job at Washington with Kalen DeBoer bringing him in. So she has the pedigree, of course. And again, let's go back to some of these prior comments. I mean, yeah, Coach O, the Big O
was doing what Chad Bowden is now. You're locking down the California trail. You're seeing USC win recruits over guys like Oregon. Oregon dominated the state of California for most of the late 2010s and early 2020s until now, really. Now we're seeing USC reclaim that. That is how you win football games, by reclaiming the state you're in. Alabama doesn't lose guys in Alabama. Georgia sometimes loses guys in Georgia. Florida State, they sometimes lose guys in Florida. Terrible examples. North Carolina, Michigan, those guys, they win their states. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and this, I mean, as well, like Dorian Singer, interesting name that I hadn't thought about in a while.
A lot better. Yeah, that was disappointing.
And then Brew McCoy, I believe, had an issue with a fraternity.
It was off the field stuff. I don't remember exactly what, because obviously we weren't there.
I believe he had trespassed a fraternity.
Is that it?
Yeah.
I swear he did some other worse stuff that we won't talk about. But
yeah, but again, like I think that's somewhat like it brings up a broader conversation of like this USC football team this past few years. It just felt like the culture is not really not just the culture, the chemistry, right? Like chemistry is so big in football because you're brothers. You know, you're living and dying for each other. It's not like basketball where like, you know, guys are getting injured every single game. You know, like what I'm trying to say is the wear and tear of football, you need to have that brotherhood. And it felt like USC with, you know, some of these past few years just hasn't had that. And I think, again, recruiting guys who can kind of relate to each other and like these Georgia recruits getting homesick during the year.
Yeah, look,
can help you.
Yeah, I mean, bringing in it's also just bringing. I'm not saying it's a bad idea to bring in guys from Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, wherever. All I'm saying about that is they are still in the heart of SEC country, of big schools around them who want them. Look at Xavier Griffin, excuse me. He's taking visits to Tennessee, Georgia still. It's going to be really hard to retain him for the rest of the year and to get him to sign just because he's around all those programs a lot more. Meanwhile, if you're looking at like the guys who are in Southern California, I think it's a lot easier to keep them because you can constantly see them. They're here all the time. And that's not saying that coaches aren't recruiting them constantly, the other guys, but it's a lot easier to do it in California. And
you got to remember, these are 18-year-old kids. Like they come from Georgia. They're not
these kids are 16 because it's class of 2026.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being 16 years old and like knowing that you're not going to be able to see your family anymore, you know, probably for the bulk of the season.
That's dark.
Well, it's true. I mean, if you're a Georgia recruit coming to SC, you're probably not going to see your family that much. You're probably not going to be able to play in front of your friends, in front of your closest people. It's hard to come that far. And I think that's what we've seen. I mean, obviously there's maybe not concrete evidence to suggest that, but I think guys getting homesick is very much in play. Rick Caruso, there actually was an April Fool's joke that he became the president of USC. I mean, I think financially that would really help them. And
every single student received an email that Rick Caruso was the next president. Then it turned out not to be true.
Yeah. So I don't know if that'll happen, but he did build the USC Village, I believe. So
where you live,
money where your mouth is, I guess. Yeah, I think keep dropping the comments, guys. But I think like the point we're trying to get at is it feels like this USC recruiting jump did not just come out of nowhere. Like there is a culture shift going on behind the scenes. And I think it's huge. I mean, we didn't even talk about the strength coach, Wiley, last name.
Benny Wiley.
Yeah. You know, Wiley was relieved of his duties and I think that was sort of an
That was
interesting,
one of the last of the Oklahoma guys with Lincoln
yeah,
Riley.
and I think that's huge.
Oh,
I mean, I
Oregon.
think look, I mean, those Oklahoma guys, some of them were good. I mean, we know Alex Grinch wasn't, but I think it's a big shift showing that Lincoln Riley is dedicated to really just put this program in the heart of where it is and what it's surrounded by. And I think again, like if you bring a guy over from Oklahoma, yes, he's still like, you're all of the same, you all love football. It's all football at the end of the day. But a guy from California, I think there's just a lot more relatability, especially with how, the college football landscape is and how competitive it is. And so I don't know. I think that move will be interesting. Also, like, can we talk about though, like USC in strength did not really go hand in hand these past couple of years, especially with how many missed tackles they had and whatnot. It just seemed like they need bigger guys. I mean, you want to recruit from California, you want to recruit big guys from California. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just going to this championship DNA. Yeah, he recruited a bunch of those guys to go to Notre Dame this last year, and obviously they won the national title. What am I talking about? No, they didn't. They went to the national title.
They won their non-existent conference.
Won their non-existent conference. That's right, Casey. Yeah, it's key to recruit all those guys. You need talent. I don't know how to say it other than that ridiculously, because obviously you need talent, but you need talent. And I feel like USC hasn't had it these past couple of years.
Yeah, I want to highlight this for a moment because sorry. No, you're good. I want to highlight this just because so Bear Alexander, he is at Oregon now, if you're not aware. And he had posted on his Instagram story a few weeks ago that he was basically happy to play football again, like as if he was not happy.
It's like one of those like cryptic texts, like, all right, dude, come on now.
And I forget who it was on Twitter, but someone posted a video of him at spring practice getting pancaked multiple times.
Look, it's the same story. He's not going to, I don't, look, I wouldn't trash a guy usually for transferring, but just the way he did it was so ridiculous. Just complaining when he was still getting on the field is so ridiculous. Like, he's not going to have a smaller role at Oregon. Like, he's not going to have a bigger role going to a school that has been better these past couple of years.
And he's an example. Like, bringing in a national title winning transfer, like in theory is good, right? But it just felt like he was not completely bought in to the USC legacy the way other guys were. And he had a decent 23, but like 24, I mean, again, we take a look at this. I mean, Eric Henderson is an incredible D-line coach. He's a guy who coached Aaron Donald. His recruiting, I'd say he's the best recruiter in the nation, genuinely. I think he's, for a position coach, I think Eric Henderson is the best recruiter in the nation. Like, he has that NFL background. Look at USC's D-line from last year to this year. I mean, it's night and day. So yeah, this is also true. Bear Alexander transferred, I believe, every year of high school.
He did.
I think it was every year.
No, he transferred every year of high school.
Okay.
It was the years USC his sophomore. I guess technically sophomore and junior year, where he was at school for longer than a year.
And just to clarify on this, there is a video of him at Oregon getting pancaked.
As in this spring, not
this year's spring, like a few weeks ago. And it's one part of it. I don't know all the context, but the point is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe that shows you Oregon's has a good O-line or just really bad D-line. I don't know.
Alexander slander is accepted here.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I believe he got a Georgia tattoo on his forearm.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. Wait, because I can picture this in my head because it's something. Is there a USC one in there too?
I think he has a Georgia tattoo, and there's a photo of him that's sort of used as a meme now of him at Penn State doing a visit. And
it's like there's a George on the bicep.
Yeah, but he's in a Penn State Nittany Lion uniform, and then he didn't even go to Penn State. So, I don't know if it was Pregnon. It might have been.
Hope not.
I don't know. Again, the video was kind of low res. I would Google it or go on Twitter. That's where I saw it. But I think just the whole irony is, this is a guy, a Southern recruit. He's from the South originally, right? I know he played at Georgia, but he, was not bought into this legacy. And these modern day kids, I mean, they play their high school games wearing SC gloves. Like, they know what it means. These kids are 16, 17 years old, but they know way more what it means than Bear Alexander does.
Yeah,
That's just a fact.
So many of their alumni went to USC. That's just what it is.
Yeah. And their parents, I mean, there's a legacy, right? Like a guy like Deuce Robinson, like he's another one. Like his dad went to Florida State. He probably didn't know what USC was all about, and he left. Like it's just, yeah, Bear Alexander from Texas. So he's a southern recruit, right? And it's not like those are bad. Like we see like Gus Cordova, like he's a highly touted recruit himself.
Obviously, a couple issues with him, but
yeah, I think we all know what the issues are in some locker room stuff in high school, but we don't need to beat around the bush, but some pretty
transfers maybe we'll bring it up, but until then
yeah. We'll keep it a little vague on that, but if you're joining us, thank you for joining in, and appreciate everyone in the comments and just everyone listening in. I feel like this is a good opportunity to talk a little bit more just about this recruiting, because who knows the next time USC is going to have a recruiting wave like this. I mean, obviously this is something that you want to build for generations, but the fact that USC has averaged a recruit per day every day for like the past week or so, I saw a stat on it. It was like 6 days, I think. It's incredible. It just shows the strides this program is making. And look, I know a lot of people don't have USC as a national championship winner, this year, but I think that just proves these guys to go out and prove them wrong, So yeah,
it's prove it year for a lot of things, for Lincoln Riley, for the recruits, all sorts of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the defense improving, and I think a second year under D'Anton Lynn is going to be huge. I think that jump from the first year with the program to the second is always a big one, and we saw how he's able to turn it around in 1 year. But yeah, I mean, it's huge. So yeah, we'll probably go for 10 more minutes here. Get to
leave us some thoughts down below. We'll address all of that stuff.
I really like this comment too, because I definitely agree. I think 2027 Ryder Lions is still on the table. I
did just get predicted to Oregon by On3 though.
Very true, but stuff can change. I think I mean, I think at the end of the day, you go out and you build this 26 class and make the CFP the next 2 years, which I think is not super out of the question.
No, definitely not.
I think
CFP is super in play both next couple of years.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see if the format changes again. I think USC would benefit and be hurt by the format changing, just because the Big Ten is in a rebuild kind of right now. I feel like
I can't see them being hurt by it. I can really only see that helping, because I mean, Big Ten and ACC are so much better than, or excuse me, SEC. God, I keep misspeaking. They are so much better than the ACC and the Big 12. So I can only see 14 teams. That's a number that keeps getting thrown out there.
Yeah, I'm just saying if it got decreased again.
I don't think it's gonna get decreased.
I mean, think about the money that goes into no one was watching. I mean, with all due respect to Boise State, not many people were watching Boise State prior to this year, and a lot of that is because of Ashton Genty, but also I mean, you and I, we love our Mountain West football, but at the end of the day, right? That enhanced format, and then you bring in. I mean, again, we didn't see a single team from California. We only saw one West Coast team in the in the CFP last year. We saw, of course, Washington the year before. It's a market that is huge, and if USC, I think the next 2 years, and again, the only reason I say 2 and not beyond that is because it's just so hard to predict.
You don't know what's going to happen.
I think it's an expectation that USC, especially the new facilities, makes the CFP, and not just as an at-large team. I think they genuinely could make a Big Ten. Potentially.
And it depends on their Big Ten schedule in 2026. So,
and let's be honest, 25, it's looking pretty light.
I mean, think about it. They could make the Big Ten championship this year. Hypothetically, you go 10-2 with one of those losses to Notre Dame. That means you're 9-1 in Big Ten play. That feels in to me, unless obviously Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon stuff. But those teams, they'll be infighting in there.
And it'll be interesting to see again, this is a big if, guys. If USC loses to Notre Dame this year, but they win pretty much every other game, how the committee sort of factors that in. Because we know how, this year, how the scheduling worked with a team like Notre Dame making the CFP. It was hard to evaluate them just because they had an easy schedule and they also didn't play in a conference. So there's a lot of talk about that Notre Dame game on the schedule every year. Should it go away? Should it stay? What's the meaning of it? if USC even puts up a fight, like if they lose against Notre Dame on the road, but still only lose by a touchdown and have a really good game, like the committee will probably remember that. And again, that could come into play.
Especially because it's super possible. I don't know if you've seen Notre Dame's schedule this year. It's not particularly hard. They play at Miami first week, then Texas A&M at home. After that, it's pretty smooth sailing other than USC. So I very much Notre Dame could go 12-0. Like that's super on the table. If USC competes pretty well with them, then that is very much a CFP team in my opinion.
Are they playing Michigan this year at all?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it's at Hard Rock Stadium for Miami, then Texas A&M home, and then I don't remember the rest, but there's various like MAC, ACC teams thrown in there. I think Louisville's in there. Stanford, that's their rivalry game when USC is in Thanksgiving. Yeah.
What do you think about this one? I mean, we talked about it a little bit. And Mayava, I think inevitably he's a great quarterback. He's just, again, we didn't see a full season of him.
I actually completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I do think. Sorry, not to cut you off. I do think it's very possible Mayava loses a game or two for USC because he's budget Caleb Williams. I've kind of been saying that. He's a very talented player, but he doesn't have the decision making that Caleb Williams did, and obviously a couple of the intangibles. But still,
to play devil's advocate, this USC defense this year could be the best defense we've seen in a long time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's Caleb the best of our tenure. I'm trying to think years back. Definitely the best of our time. Obviously, I'll be a senior. You'll be a junior. Obviously, I had to live through 2 years of the Alex Grinch era. That was horrible. Yeah, I think that's not on the that's not bad at all. I think it's like a top 5 defense, top 4, top 3 defense in the Big Ten. Is that crazy?
No, I agree, and I think to Todd's point here, like I think it's tough to evaluate the offense just because you're yeah, Bear the quitter. I think it's a little tough just because you don't know, like new running back room, pretty new wide receiver room in terms of like what's going to happen. Like we didn't have Jacoby taking that many snaps last year, all things considered. So or get that many targets rather. But I think this year could even be better than the Caleb years. I think just because the defense has been the X factor. The defense has been the X factor every single year since. And this year, and I really appreciate you guys in the comments talking about this, even on the side, like the D-line and everything. The defense has taken the jump with these recruits. And Danton Lynn, with a year under his belt, I mean, we talked about the D-line a couple weeks ago, right? Have we talked about the D-line in a video yet?
D-line yet? No.
Well, then we'll have that on the way at some point. But we've alluded to it that the D-line is really going to make some jumps this year. I mean, I don't even think that's a hot take. I think there's a lot of things. And also, like, you'll lose some guys in the secondary, but Jason Johnson coming in gives me a lot more confidence. 3 interceptions last year as a freshman.
Played, I think the number is 456 snaps as a true freshman. That's a lot of experience for a young guy.
Yeah, and I mean, the Big 12 didn't have bad QBs. Like, you're playing off against Jake Retzlaff, who had a great year. Who I forget? I'm blanking on Iowa State's QB.
Shador. They played Shador.
Yeah, Shador. Who's Iowa State's QB again? I'm blanking on his name.
Not Brock Purdy, obviously. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Forgetting the name.
Yeah, well, if someone in the comments wants to bring it up, they can. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the O-line a little bit earlier, so if you want to like rewind to get our full thoughts on it, go for it. But I think
we both think they'll be better than last year. Personally, obviously, you're adding 2 very solid guys in Reed and Wingfield, but you lose Monheim and Pregnon. Those are also big. At the same time, getting rid of Mason Murphy, that's a big one.
Also, you guys got to remember that like a lot of the guys in the starting online spot are going to be making that big year 1 to year 2 jump. So yeah, like Elijah Page, Tobias Raymond broke out last year.
Year 2 to 3.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I mean,
no, I know.
I'm saying from a breakout year to a solidified year is what I'm sort of like. Not like freshman and sophomore necessarily. But same with Alani Noah too. Like you just want to see that consistency. Again, I mean, maybe the O-line is the weakest spot just because O-line, is.
I agree with this comment right here. At the very least, it should be better than last year at the start. As we talked about, both Page and Raymond, obviously Raymond got in later, but Page got a lot better over time. So they should be a lot better, at least at the start.
you just got to stay healthy too. Like there's not a ton of depth at that position, and you have some vets on that. Like the two guys they brought in, from the East, Wingfield and Reed. I mean, they're both redshirt seniors, so like they're gonna have that veteran mentorship to some of these young guys. But get your final comments in. We're at the hour mark officially, so we do have to run in a moment. Appreciate all 30 of you who are in here. Again, we have a weekly show. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Our names are right there. We talk about everything USC. We're literally on the campus every single day. And I'm going to be, I won't speak for you. Maybe you will, but I'm going to be going to every practice next year. I'll be at every home and away game. So Terrence is going to be at as many as he can be at. And so we're going to have a lot of insider access that is pretty unprecedented. And again, we have this weekly show. We really appreciate you guys for tuning in, just trying to bring that coverage to USC as the sort of primary sources that we are. But Terrence, do you have anything to add?
No, just leave some thoughts down below. Casey and I will try and get to it. Weekly show, loving it so far. Don't know, figure out what we'll talk about next week. Probably some more position breakdown stuff. But
yeah, and we're gonna have coverage on the summer as well. Obviously, games won't be being played, but if you haven't already, check out our schedule video. We talked last week as well about the wide receivers, and we'll have more content as well. So again, make sure to follow us on socials. And we also, if you guys are interested in USC baseball and basketball, we post about those as well. So yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. And yes, actually, I was wearing an old school 24 jersey, and I got the player issued with the padding number 23. So I stay drippy on these shows.
You did not just say that. Oh my Lord.
Hey, Leon noticed it. Okay. So I got the Nike engineered, we love donning our cardinal and gold on the show. So thanks again, guys. Make sure to whatever you want to do, DM us on Twitter or follow us. And yeah, appreciate you guys. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.